When you think of mummification, you almost certainly think of ancient Egypt, the gilded sarcophagi, the pyramids, and the elaborate rituals dedicated to preserving the pharaohs for the afterlife. But what if I told you the origins of this intricate practice lie not in the Nile Valley, but deep within a Sahara desert that was once a vibrant green savanna? The story begins long before the first pharaohs, with the discovery of a small child that has completely reshaped our understanding of ancient African history. In 1958, Italian archaeologist Fabrizio Mori was exploring the Tadrart Akakis Mountains in southwestern Libya, documenting the stunning prehistoric rock art that covered the cliffs. These thousands of paintings depicted a world teeming with giraffes, elephants, and bustling human communities, a green Sahara. But Mori suspected there was more hidden beneath the surface. In 1959, at a rock shelter called Uan Muhugiag, his team began to dig. In the soft sand, they found a bundle. At first, it looked like a pile of leaves, but as they carefully brushed away the debris, they uncovered an animal skin sack. Inside, curled in a fetal position, was the perfectly preserved body of a young child. The discovery was revolutionary. The child, only about 2.5 years old, was wrapped in an antelope skin and wore a delicate necklace made from ostrich eggshell beads. But the most stunning feature was the clear evidence of intentional, artificial mummification. A long incision on the child's abdomen showed that its internal organs had been removed, a process called evisceration. The empty body cavity was then packed with herbs to help preserve the body. This was not a natural mummy, created by the dry desert air. This was a deliberate, sophisticated procedure. Radiocarbon dating delivered the biggest shock. The antelope skin wrapping the child was dated to around 250 years ago. This placed the Uan Muhugiag mummy a full 1,000 years before the earliest comparable mummies from ancient Egypt. The long-held belief that Egyptians invented mummification was instantly challenged. To understand the people who performed this ritual, we have to imagine a very different Sahara. Between 7,500 and 5,000 years ago, during a period called the Neolithic Subpluvial, North Africa was not a desert. It was a sprawling savanna, crisscrossed by rivers and dotted with lakes. Pollen analysis from the Uan Muhugiag site confirms this, showing a landscape filled with tropical plants, crocodiles, elephants, and fish. This lush environment supported thriving societies of cattle herders. The rock art of the region is our window into their world. With over 15,000 paintings and engravings, it's a vibrant chronicle of their daily lives, their hunting trips, and their ceremonies. This art shows a people deeply connected to their cattle, which were not just food, but held immense cultural and religious importance. The art also hints at a complex spiritual life. There are paintings of human figures with animal heads, interpreted by some as shamans in a trance. One striking image shows a man wearing a dog mask, which predates the famous Egyptian jackal-headed god of mummification, Anubis, by 1,000 years. This discovery, along with elaborate burials like the Uan Muhugiag child's, strongly suggests a belief in an afterlife. Now, let's shift our focus to the Nile Valley during the same era. In pre-dynastic Egypt, before the pharaohs, people were also preserving their dead, but in a different way. During the Badarian and Naqada periods, from about 4,400 to 3,000 BCE, the dead were buried in simple pits in the ground. The hot, dry sand of the desert would naturally desiccate the bodies, creating natural mummies. These graves were filled with goods like pottery, jewelry, and cosmetic palettes, showing a belief that these items would be needed in the afterlife, which was seen as a continuation of life on Earth. For a long time, this was the accepted story, but recent research has complicated things. Scientists analyzing linen wrappings from Egyptian burials dating to around 3,500 BCE found evidence of complex embalming recipes. These were not just natural mummies. The Egyptians were experimenting with artificial preservation much earlier than we thought. They used concoctions of plant oils, conifer resin, and aromatic extracts, substances with antibacterial properties remarkably similar to the embalming fluids used 500 years later during the peak of Egyptian mummification. So this brings us to the great debate. Did the art of mummification begin in the Central Sahara and then spread to the Nile Valley? The evidence for the Saharan hypothesis is compelling. First, you have the Uan Muhugyag mummy itself, proof of advanced evisceration techniques a millennium before Egypt. Then there's the rock art depicting figures that look like Anubis, again, long before he appeared in the Nile Valley. And finally, we have the climate science. Around 5,000 years ago, the Sahara began to dry up. This desertification likely pushed many of these pastoral communities to migrate towards more hospitable areas, like the fertile Nile Valley. It's plausible they brought their knowledge, culture, and funerary practices with them. We even see Saharan-style pottery appearing in early Nile settlements. However, the debate is not settled. Other scholars argue for an independent development in Egypt. They point to Egypt's long tradition of natural mummification as a possible inspiration for their own artificial methods. The discovery of those early embalming recipes in Egypt suggests they were on their own path of experimentation. Plus, the materials were different. Animal hides in the Sahara, linen wrappings in Egypt, pointing to distinct traditions. It's also possible that the practice arose independently in multiple places, or that it was a complex back-and-forth exchange of ideas across North Africa, not a simple one-way street. The Un Muhugyag child isn't the only piece of this puzzle. Even more recently, in 2023, genomic analysis of two 7,000-year-old female mummies, also from Libya, revealed they belonged to a previously unknown human lineage that had been genetically isolated for thousands of years. While they were naturally mummified, their existence highlights the deep and complex history of human settlement in the Sahara, suggesting many more secrets are waiting to be found. The story of Africa's oldest mummies has fundamentally changed our view of the ancient world. The Sahara was not an empty wasteland, but a cradle of culture and innovation. The people who lived there were sophisticated pastoralists with a rich spiritual life and a profound understanding of human anatomy. Their legacy challenges us to look beyond the grand monuments of the pharaohs and explore the deeper, more ancient roots of African civilization. The little boy of Uan Muhugyag, buried with such care and love thousands of years ago, has, in a way, achieved a form of immortality. His remarkably preserved body has allowed his lost world to be rediscovered, ensuring his story and the story of his people can finally be told.